Passed out the syllabus to those who are present in the classroom, and our Zoomers, you have access to the syllabus online. Okay, I'd just like to go over it for a moment because so you can get an overview of of our course. It is 8 sessions, as we know. Today is the first one, and I have at the beginning here, I have an important reference for this course. And mhm. uh, okay, we'll just go over the syllabus first. Um, the main resource that I relied upon to prepare the material for this class is an online journal. It's a scholarly journal. It's called JSTOR. And that is the whole collection. So it's journal storage. Basically, that's what the JSTOR stands for. And the library here at USF has access to it. Now, I put here on the syllabus the link because each of you can go to that link and establish your own account. And that way, when you go back and forth, you just have to sort of sign in, and then you have complete access to it. Now, the section that we are relying on is called The Islam in the World Today, a handbook of politics, religion, culture, and society, edited by Werner Ende and Udo Steinbach. And this was originally written and published in German. And then, it's sort of very comprehensive, as you can imagine, and many different authors have contributed to it. But it's, as you can see, 1,128 pages. And it has many, many topics under the heading of Islam. And of course, because we only have a limited time of us being together, I had to sort of pick and choose. And I just want to share with you that as I was, yes, here it is. Thank you, Doa. So this is the resource, and you see where it says register or log in at the top. That's where you will click on. If you're unfamiliar with it, you can register your own information and then go back and forth easily and access the reference. Dewa, can you scroll down a bit? I just want to show everybody. Okay, so here you have the table of contents, and there's all sorts of topics. So I sort of cherry picked the ones that I thought had the most relevance for our particular topic, which is understanding the cultural and religious aspects of Islam. As you can imagine from the title, there's a lot of stuff that has to do with politics and history. I mean, I'm not a political scientist. I am a linguist by training. And so I picked the things that I thought were the most relevant for us. Um, Also, I just want to say that in my own educational preparation, in undergraduate school, I had one course, a semester long, on Islam. And then when I got to grad school, I had another course. I was in divinity school first. And so I had another course on Islam in divinity school, and that was also a semester. And we only have 8 weeks, right? And so hence the need to really curtail what we're doing. So for today, we're going to start out with watching this classic film by Houston Smith. He's being interviewed by Bill Moyer, and it was a series of films that were produced, I think, back in the 80s, 1980s. And it's all about Islam. So we'll begin there. You'll get a great overview. After the film runs about 51 minutes. So after we see the film, we will take our 10-minute break, okay? And then when we come back from our break, I have prepared a something like a PowerPoint presentation, but it's on another format called Canva. And so I've just given you 7 slides, actually 6, because the first one is the title of the course, with some general facts about Islam as a world religion, okay? And that'll be our scope for today. All right, I think we are ready. I'm going to
50 years
dim the
ago, and
lights a little bit. Sorry, was there a question? Okay. Oh, that was him, okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, I better do that. Okay, Doa, thank you.
wanting Americans to learn about the world's great religions in distant lands. Today, those religions are next-door neighbors. Islam, the subject of this program, is the fastest-growing religion in America. Some of these believers are immigrants, but others are converts from different faiths, seeking spiritual sustenance outside the tradition they were born into. Houston Smith himself was born and remains a Methodist, but 5 times a day he prays to Allah, whom Muslims call the one indivisible and universal God. Houston Smith's life work has been to go beyond scholarly observation and enter into the heart of each religion. He writes, "To glimpse at what reality means to the mystic Sufi adds dimension to the glance of spirit. To understand how the Muslim communicates with his God engenders a larger world to live in." Come with us as we join Houston Smith in his continuing search for the wisdom of faith. Is prayer a part of your regular routine, everyday, mundane world now? Every day?
It is. And actually, Paul, who says we don't know how to pray, does say pray without ceasing. And that is my aim. But don't let me let on like I do this a lot, because my mind gets distracted.
Sure.
And therefore I get caught up in what I have to do and this sort of thing. But perhaps the most important thing is, ever since I came upon the Sufis in Islam.
They're the mystics of Islam.
The mystics of Islam, right. And was living with them and got into the rhythm of the prayers 5 times a day. I both liked that. I mean, it resonated with me so much, and I liked also the structure it gave the day, on a rising, at noon, when the sun is halfway down, sunset, and bedtime. Just before bed. It gives a structure of the day which I just find kind of cleansing. It builds an order into a day which can go to pieces and just go down the drain. From the top of the minaret, the muezzin calls the faithful to prayer. God is most great. I testify that there is no God but God. Come to prayer. Come to salvation. And 5 times a day the faithful drop what they're doing to bring their minds back to what is truly important, to what is everlastingly enduring. The ritual washing that precedes prayer symbolizes the aspiration to inward purity.
I can certainly understand the importance of structure to one's prayer life, the kind of structure you have in the Muslim prayer 5 times a day. What about the content, though? What is the content of those prayers?
They call it a raka, and it is repeated in all 5. Most of the Muslims in the world don't know Arabic, but they all say the prayer, and their pronunciation, many of them, isn't any better than mine. This is the way it goes in Arabic. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ya Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Praise be to Allah, the creator of the worlds. So right at the start, we get things in place. This life, this world, is no accident. Randomness isn't much of a philosophy to live by. It all flows and emanates from a being infinite in power and equally infinite in goodness. Having established the reality of this absolute Allah, we move to the character. What is its character? The merciful, the compassionate. And there's 2 flows there. The merciful in having created us, given us this gift of life. The compassionate in drawing us back to Him, in Islamic term imagery, to heaven. Now, just as we're about ready to say, well, that's fine, and sort of slack back, why we get ruler of the day of judgment. In other words, watch out, don't relax. This is a world of law, and mistakes have their consequences. Therefore, watch out the steps that you're making in this day.
Is there a single image of Islam that comes to mind that articulates the essence of that powerful story?
One could hold the Quran in one's hand and say this as the believed word of God would be the symbol of it. But the Quran does not reveal itself to the outsider. Those who are within it just relish it as the apex of all human poetry and everything else, but from the outsider, it is a daunting effect. So I can remember how hard I worked to try to wring the meaning from this.
I suspect that others would say the same about the book of Leviticus and the book of Numbers in the Hebrew Bible, or the book of the epistle to the Romans in the Christian New Testament.
Well, that's true. There is a clue to the difference between the outsider and the insider reading the Quran. One of them, by the way, is language, because Arabic does seem to have a power to affect the emotion like few, if any, languages do. But there's something else. See, in both the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament, they are really stories, and theological points are sort of interspersed in the story. Now, in the Quran, theology is the main thing, and as for stories, they presume that the reader will know the basic story of the Hebrew canon, and of the Christian canon, so it sort of alludes to those, but no coherent account. And we've been talking about our problem understanding their text. They have a problem understanding us. They do not see how we can put so much prize and faith and esteem for a book in which God talks only in the third person. In the Quran, it is Allah speaking directly, and that gives a kind of immediate power to the assertion. The other books seem oblique on that matter.
And that would help to explain the architecture, which is very direct, very immediate, very experiential, like the voice of God in the Quran. I mean, there's no beating around the bush, so no pun intended.
No beating around the bush. And when the central point, which is announced in every surah, is the majesty and supremacy of God and the human being, as they use a word we don't like, slave, but let's just get to the point. Namely, this Allah is ultimate and in power, and everything to turn on our relationship, which would be submission. The core of Islam is embedded in its name, submission. We don't like that because we like to be masters of our fate, captains of our soul, but we don't see what that is. The submission is to reality, to, given the name Allah. And Allah is, that reality is perfectly designed wherein goodwill, justice, and so on are the norms to which our lives should be given.
And the mosque, again, as you go into it, calls forth that surrender. It puts one in a position of understanding how small and insignificant we are compared to the architecture of the universe as they see it.
And the beauty of that architecture, it's not blind power. A beauty, a majesty, and of course a compassion and concern for the worshiper representing humanity as a whole. All of that just encircles one in the mosque.
Something in the soul seems to give itself up as you go in there.
You enter into another world as you cross that threshold. Yes. Hindu temples, they just have to cram in everything. You get these facades leading up 7 pillars, and every inch just crammed with figures, like they're trying to get the infinity of all being just depicted. By contrast, Islamic art is sober, suggests peace and stillness and expanse. The beauty of sobriety and containment. Frank Lloyd Wright loved the Islamic architecture that hugs the earth and is planted solidly. Now, of course, the minarets rise because there must be some pointing to the above, but nevertheless it's space and quietude, sobriety, serenity for Islamic art.
What do you think we ought to know about the figure of Muhammad, those of us in the West? How should we perceive his role in Islam?
Well, not central, because it's the Quran that is central, and Muhammad was only the mouthpiece, the conduit through which those words came. But his role was basically that of an exemplar. So his importance lies primarily as an example of how someone whose heart and soul were dedicated totally to Allah would comport himself in a wide variety of situations, including those of political power. And I think that objective historians, not just Muslim, but historians of any nationality, will give him very good marks as to how he utilized his power during that decade in which he was in power. This is Muhammad when he rose through the 7 heavens into the presence of Allah. The 7 heavens symbolizing the 7 states of consciousness as we advance towards the divine. He is surrounded by these flames indicating the divine spirit. And there's actually a little humorous element here, because on the way up he met the various prophets that were in each of the heavens. And on the next to the last he met Moses. And so after he had been with Allah on the way down, why, he decided to stop off and hobnob with Moses again. And Moses says, well, what did Allah tell you? And Muhammad said, he told me to tell my people, his people, to pray 50 times a day. And Moses says, come on, that'll never work. They'll never do that. Go back, go back. So Muhammad goes back and comes down, and Moses says, what? Well, how'd it go? Well, he brought it down to 40. Impossible, still off the chart. Moses says, look, I know those people. I had to work with their predecessors. Even 10 is too many. They'll never live up to it. You've got to go back one more time. Tell Allah to be reasonable and merciful. And so when he comes back with 5, which is what it was fixed. Even then, Moses says, take my word for it, they won't live up to it. But then Muhammad said, I'm not going back. If you want to bring it down, you're going to have to go up and talk to him.
Makes you wonder how many original commandments there were before Moses negotiated a reduction.
Exactly. Well, this was the times of prayer.
Right.
Times of prayer. And so,
But what does this
and
say?
so it stayed with 5 times a day. As we,
You talked about the Sufis earlier. Who are the Sufis?
the Sufis are the mystics of Islam. Those, every Muslim expects to see God, to meet God at some point beyond death. But the Sufis were, you might say, the spiritually impatient. They wanted God right now in this life. And they were willing to undergo the added disciplines that would be required in order to bring the sense of the presence into the immediate moment, day by day, step by step.
And you say they opened the door to Islam for you?
They did. For the Sufis, you could say there is no reality but the reality. Immediately, the door is open to us as outsider, for whom Allah may be a strange word, because anybody can understand that reality with a capital R, namely things as they finally are, Well, and the claim is they are a unity. It's not a melange of competing powers and things like that. There is a structure of reality, and there is no other reality than that. There are partial realities. I hate to tell you this, but you're only partially real, Bill, and I'm only partially real. In our Carmen Pollens, there's a lot of phoniness mixed in with our reality, but there is only one ultimate reality.
What is it about what they do that enables them to come back from the mystical experience and say, this is the reality that we have experienced?
Like the non-Sufi Muslim, they are very meticulous in terms of observing the 5 pillars, the 5 requirements of being a Muslim, which are, first, their affirmation of faith, which is very brief, La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the prophet of God. And then there are the prayers 5 times a day. The third one is the pour due, or the alms. It is an expression of Allah's will that we share the abundance of this world. The fourth is the month of Ramadan, where from the moment of dawn, which is defined as when you can distinguish a black thread from a white thread, until sunset, neither food, nor drink, nor smoke, nor sexual indulgence may be engaged in. And the last is somewhat optional. It is the pilgrimage to Mecca, if finances and health make that possible. Now, the Sufis will be meticulous in observing that structure. They do not consider themselves above that, but they enter into all of this in greater intensity and in symbolism, greater symbolism. For example, the fast for most Muslims and during Ramadan is simply abstaining from food, drink, smoke, and the like. The fast for the Sufis, they tighten it up into fasting from worldly thoughts. And therefore they try during that month to keep their minds focused on the holy, taking on more regimen, more exercise, like an athlete in training, pour more of their lives into it to make Allah a reality in their everyday life.
And they dance.
And they dance, and they dance. Most Muslims shun dancing, but for Sufis it is a meditation that brings them to Allah. It was really Rumi and the Mevlevi order that he started because he was a poet and would go into ecstasy so easily. And many of his greatest poems were composed while he was gyrating, and the poetry would flow out. And so dancing, the circling dance, derived from that. But there is this famous story, the time for prayer, for the noon prayer came, and this non-Sufi Muslim saw Rumi and his disciples dancing in there, and he threw open the window and shouted, "Prayer, prayer!" And Rumi replied calmly, "We are at prayer," and the dancing continued.
You say of the dancer, he has achieved the stillness that is the dancing.
I borrowed that from T.S. Eliot. That's his phrase. So let's together think, what did he mean by the stillness that is the dancing? Well, the dancing is the outward. It's the movement of the body. But the stillness is of the spirit, to which geography is utterly irrelevant. As Augustine said, God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. The stillness is that center which is everywhere. And as these disciples circle, or their bodies are the dance, but the stillness is that moment of concentration.
Did you dance?
Did I dance?
Did you,
yes.
Did you experience?
Oh, yes.
You did.
I know the first one that I was in was as the sky became dark and no lights inside, I could only see the silhouettes of the figures against the windows where there was still a little bit of light. And at that one, there was one person who became intoxicated with God and just went into these convulsions. But they're prepared for it, and they've got a bulky bouncer, and the bouncer would come and just embrace, sort of surround the person and quiet the ecstatic fervor within them. And then it would go on to dances where we would all rise to our feet, and sometimes we would be holding hands and locking arms around shoulders, and sometimes just alone and moving from one foot. But the tempo and the pace would rise. I did not go into ecstasy, partly because the observer part of me was too alert to what was going on. But people differ in the threshold between their conscious and the controlled aspect of them and the capacity to spill over into a more spontaneous, where the spirit takes over and they're not conscious of what's happening. And I don't have much of that capacity.
Nor do I. I have seen it in services in this country of the charismatics, the Pentecostals, even my own childhood church, the Baptist church. I saw people go into a state of ecstasy and revival, what we call revival meetings, evangelistic meetings, that sound a lot like what you're describing among the Sufis.
Very much so. Very much so.
So mysticism, in a way, becomes a kind of universal experience available to people who might not enter the faith, as you said, through the difficulties of the Quran or the Holy Scripture of the Christians or Jews. Mysticism is...
It spills over into all of the tradition. There's no way to keep it out because it's part and a potential of the spiritual makeup of a human being, however much it is expressed or limited in a given lifetime.
What is the mystic view of a human being?
Approached experientially, it is an altered state of consciousness. In those moments, one knows that what passes for reality in our lives it would be the difference between a postcard of Crater Lake and seeing Crater Lake. If you had those two, there'd be no, I mean, it's not a matter of argument. You know that Crater Lake is greater than the postcard of it.
So when you say I am a mystic, you are saying that I've had an inner experience that is real to me, so real that I see everything else differently after that. My consciousness has been altered.
Yeah. And this is the apex, the ultimate. There is only God. There is only the holy. You can put it almost in an E equals MC squared kind of formula. Nothing but God exists, and paradoxically, everything that exists is God. Now, that's absolutely nonsense in terms of our ordinary, everyday view of things, but I have studied that enough to the point where I am absolutely sure that that is true, even though I only stammeringly can articulate or point to why it is true.
It's authentic for you because you have experienced it.
Well, again, I don't want to make great claims, but let's say foothills experiences. And certainly, and yes, there come those moments when yes, it does seem self-evident.
You mentioned the mystic poet Rumi, 13th century. I've become very enamored of his poetry.
Did you know I just heard that he is the most read poet in America today?
You have a couple of his poems in your book. Would you read these?
Oh, this is the famous, listen to the sound of the reed, and before I begin it, it's just the flute made from a reed, and the reed plucked from the marshes, and then the longing of the flute to be back home in the marshes as a symbol of the longing of the human heart to be back in the bosom of Allah. Listen to the story told by the reed of being separated. Since I was cut from the reed bed, I have made this crying sound. Anyone separated from the one he loves understands what I say. Anyone pulled from the source longs to go back.
There are similarities between what you just read and the Song of Solomon and the Psalms, some of the Psalms in the Hebrew Bible.
Sure.
Again, poetry, music, like mysticism, do speak a universal language.
They certainly do, and we were just talking about the ecstatics. There seem to be three forms of union with the divine. One is the ecstatic form, which is over, the body goes into convulsions as the spirit sort of moves into a different state. In a way, an extroverted, because it can be seen, ecstatic, lifted out of oneself. And then the second, which is more rare, but which goes off the charts altogether, because it leaves fewer traces, but it is of the spirit moving into an identity with the divine. But what can you say? about that. It is so inward that it defies description. They try to use images, a moth being consumed by the flame, drawn to it, but then the moth is gone. And that, to most minds, indicates a loss. But for the higher mathematics of the spirit, it's not like the dewdrop enters into the shining sea, because then we say, oh, poor dewdrop, no more dewdrop, and we think of ourselves as dewdrops, so we think of it as annihilation. But the more accurate image would be that the dewdrop opens and the entire sea enters into the dewdrop. Mm-hmm. And then there's a third kind, the love poetry, and that's where the Sufis excel. I mean, playing upon this deep, perhaps deepest emotion in all of us of love, and using that to indicate the union of the spirit with the divine in love. My God and my Lord, eyes are at rest, the stars are setting. Hushed are the movements of birds in their nests, of monsters in the sea. And you are the just who knows no change, and the equity that does not swerve, the everlasting that never passes away. The doors of kings are locked now and guarded by their henchmen, but your door is open to those who call upon you. My Lord, each lover is now alone with his beloved, and I am alone with thee. This sense of intimacy, just total intimacy, of which the lover alone with the beloved behind locked doors, and how together and apart they are, and then she having that same feeling with the divine.
How do you know when the mystical experience is authentic?
By their fruits you shall know them. If anyone thinks that they are getting closer to the divine by whatsoever name, the ultimate, personal, or impulse, and is not growing closer to one's fellows in terms of empathy and compassion and concern, you can be dead sure that you're dealing with an illusion, and you have deviated from the mark, whatever, euphoric cloud nine kind of experiences come to them. That is absolutely the surest test.
And this?
This, just recently, within the last 10 days, I heard a lecture by a rabbi, and in the question period they said, somebody asked, why do you wear that cap, that yarmulke, the kippy? And he said, what I want to know is, why does the Pope wear it? Which I thought was a delightful answer. I don't know why the Pope wears it. But the symbolism in Islam it's a shield. It's like radiation. We have, when we're undergoing radiation, we have these lead belts. The power of the divine is so incandescent and so powerful that if we were not insulated from it, it would consume us into absolutely nothing. So this is a concession that our life isn't over yet, and so we need to shield ourselves from that divine incandescent so we can work out the days that have been allotted to it.
After years under colonialism, Islam is emerging today as a very vital force in world affairs. One person out of every 5 or 6 belongs to Islam, and not an hour of the day passes without the faithful being summoned to prayer somewhere in the world. What does this say to you?
Well, it says to me that this is an important part of world history, and it poses a special challenge to us, because when I say us, I mean the West, including Europe and the United States, because we have been have shared borders with Islam for 1,400 years, and borders don't always make for best relationships. We've been enemies, that's the truth. We've been enemies for 1,400 years, and people typically do not have the best view, the most accurate view of their enemies. So I think there is more misunderstanding on the part of the West of Islam than there is of any other religion. And even though technologically they're behind us, nevertheless there is a power in that tradition which remains vital. So this is going to be a good part of the 21st century, how these two great faiths settle down into relationship with one another, and it's going to require the keenest understanding that's going to be desperately hard to achieve, but it's our agenda in a way.
The Islam you have described this morning is at odds with the image of Islam in the minds of people who've only heard talk about the jihads, the holy wars, and the fundamentalist militants. And there is another side to Islam.
I think that's true of all religions. There is a spiritual core to all of them, as well as the external form, and the genius for continuation and nurturing millions of people through the ages is this kind of balance between the spiritual essence and the external form. It's like the kernel of a nut and the shell of a nut, and both parts are needed.
When I hear people talking about the jihad, the holy wars of Islamic fundamentalism, I think, yes, that must be how the Christian Crusades appeared to the Muslims back when, in the name of peace, in the name of God, Christians were slaughtering the enemy.
And just one element, the fact that jihad, that word, has been translated by the media as holy war is one telling incident of how little understanding there is. The dictionary meaning of jihad is effort. If we want to strengthen that, it is exertion. War isn't in the definition. Of course, war requires effort, it requires exertion, but to pick that out as the meaning of jihad is just to get off on the wrong foot to begin with. Now, if only Western people could understand that the meaning of jihad inclines more toward the war of evil within ourselves and only in a derivative meaning against other people, already the atmosphere would change a bit.
What is the common wisdom that these 6 traditions have to offer to us today?
Well, that have to do with ethics and the virtues we should try to acquire and the vision of reality. In ethics, they come down pretty much to, well, in the West, the Decalogue.
The 10 Commandments?
10 Commandments. There are 4 areas of life that we can get all snarled up in force and the spoken word and sex and possessions. And so they're all very much one in giving guidelines to ethics. They're all very much one in indicating the kind of people we should try to become, which means the virtues that we should try to acquire. In Western idiom, the three most important are humility, charity, and veracity. In Asia, they like the negative way of putting it, the obstacles that keep us from these virtues. So they talk about greed, hatred, and anger, but they mesh perfectly, one in positive language, the other talking about the obstructions to those. And then in vision, they all say that things are more unified, more whole, more one, more integrated than we realize. By the way, science is now confirming that. Second, they say that not only is it more one, it is more wonderful. And here our spirits are just too small to encompass the exuberance of these traditions in terms of their sense of the human potential. There's this rabbinic saying that every time a human being walks down the street, he or she is preceded by a choir of angels shouting, "Make way, make way, make way for the image of God." But these traditions have this exuberance that is contagious when you get it, and I think it's true. And then finally, the third thing they say about reality is it's more mysterious than we ever suppose. The more you learn about it, the more you see about how much more there is you don't know than you originally realized.
The greater the continent of knowledge, the longer the shore of mystery. To quote you, the modern psychologists are beginning to agree that the single most powerful yearning in us is the yearning to be lovingly related to others. And I keep asking myself, if these religions which espouse love cannot bring the human race together in the love of God, what good are they?
All right. Well, I think that they would all say that this life, this world, its purpose is not to be turned into a paradise. They all believe that there is a paradise, but they all believe that we gain by having to work out our, well, as Buddha would say, work out your salvation with diligence. In other words, we have to do it rather than having it done for us. So the agenda is before us, and insofar as we contribute our energy to harmony, community, loving compassion, then our souls grow. But if we're expecting a paradise on earth, I think they would say what is hard for us to hear, you do not understand the meaning of this particular stage in life, which is to give us the maximum problems from which we can learn the most if we pour ourselves into that learning process.
But you see, if these religions do espouse these and aspire to these qualities, this behavior, this wonder, how do you explain that so often they end in antagonism within themselves and among themselves? I mean, if God were one, why are his children fighting so much?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a line from the Quran saying, if we had wished, they use the royal we for Allah, if we had wished, we could have made you one people, but as it is, we have made you many. Therefore, vie among yourself in good works. Now that doesn't, I think it's a wonderful formula. It doesn't say why we made you many, but I think the truth of the matter is, that they all get around to saying sometime, is that the one and the many together add up to a more glorious totality than if we had the one only.
Next on The Wisdom of Faith with Houston Smith, his philosophical quest
What happens in the human soul,
became his passion.
it's just so overwhelming.
His faith was challenged. How do you test the truth of religion?
Not in the laboratory.
His life was changed.
My mind detonated.
Now he reflects on the essence of God.
The perfect being in which all power and virtue unite.
On our human limits,
We have no view of the whole.
our ongoing struggle,
If it told us the answer, it would take our freedom away from us.
and our ultimate destination.
There is a happy ending that blossoms from difficulties that must be surmounted.
Hey. Well, so we're getting ready to have our break. Are there any questions that have come up during the film? I think it was 1982, but I'll double check on that. I actually
Professor,
have
can
the,
you repeat the question, please? Yeah, for the
Oh,
students online.
yes.
Thank-
Okay, sorry. Do I need to use the microphone?
No,
Oh,
whenever a
okay.
student asks, I think we should be able to pick up,
Okay.
or if you can repeat the question. Yeah.
Yes, the question was what it was the year that this film was made. And I said, I think it's 1982, but I will verify that because I have the old VCR at home and I will double check. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
The name of the interviewer.
Bill Moyers is the interviewer, and Houston Smith is the scholar. And he has held some prominent professorial positions, you know, at many of the top universities. He was at Cal for a number of years, and he's been at Columbia and at University of Chicago, I believe. And so many of the, you know, the top names in universities have had him on their staff. He's passed away now. Yes. 1996. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So I was, before class started, I was passing around a sign-in sheet and I didn't get everybody. So if you have not signed this, please do so as we, you know, as we break for a few minutes. So when we come back, we will, I will be showing you this PowerPoint-like presentation with a few slides and then giving you some more information to augment the slides. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back. If you don't mind, I'd like to just read people's names so that I can sort of connect a name with the face. Can you hear me? Okay. Oh, let me see if I can turn this up. Doa, does the microphone have volume control?
I can hear you perfectly online, but let me come in and check.
Okay,
Is the
okay.
sound not that,
Well, a couple of
up?
people
Yeah.
towards the back said that I need to speak up.
Okay,
You know, they can't, yeah.
okay, Alfredo will come in and raise the volume.
Okay,
He's
all
on his
right.
way. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have John Lira. Did John leave? Probably. Janet Schrader. Okay. And then Anne Cassinan. Okay. Elena. Okay, thank you. Naftali. Okay. Michael Mazzaferro. Yes. And Patty Schmidt. Okay. Kay, is that Harnish Lad? Yes, okay. And then Betty Zlatchin. Okay. Pamela Sergio. Okay. Mary Walker McLean. Okay. Bob Shank. Yes. Linda Shap. Okay. Claudia. I'm not sure how to say that. Gilling Nation. Oh, yes. Okay. Was that correct? Okay, thank you. And then Terry Canizera. Yes, hi. Julie Ball. Good. I'm not sure about this next name. Is it Huket? Oh, good. Okay. David Kinport. Yes. Judith Stoddard. Hi, Judith. Tom Longest. All right. And then Patience. Yes. Oh, nice. Diane Myers. Yes. William. Oh, that's William, the husband. Okay, got it. Kristen. Yes. And Elisa. Is it Elisa? Is that correct? Okay, very good. Well, I'm so glad that you're all here. All right, so we are going to now look at our little slideshow that I've prepared for you.
Professor, before you start, there are two
Yes.
questions in the chat. Can I read them
Okay.
to you?
All
Okay.
right. Yes.
The first one is from Hunter. He asks, how is some of that arcane thought distilled to the average Muslim when an imam may not be able to tap into this?
Could you repeat that again, Doa? I'm
How,
sorry.
sure. How is some of that arcane thought distilled to the average Muslim when an imam may not be able to tap into this?
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Well,
think I'm probably gonna ask Hunter if you can unmute yourself and ask the question if you can. Otherwise, we'll just kind of have to wait
okay.
for the. I'll ask.
Okay.
Okay. I just asked Hunter to unmute,
Okay.
and I guess. Okay. All right. Looks like Hunter is a little caught up. So can I
Okay.
read the second question?
Well, let's do it one more time. I'm getting a sense for what they are asking.
Okay.
All right. One more time, Doa.
Sure. So the same question or?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I think it started around 11. So that's in and around the time the movie ended. So the
Okay.
question is, how is some of the arcane, like RACKNE,
Yes.
thought distilled to the average Muslims when an imam may not be able to tap into this? So I
Mhm.
think it's
Well, just from my experience, I think it's really incumbent upon the believer. And, you know, you can go to the imam, but Islam is very much concerned with each individual person in terms of developing your own faith. And the imam is not I would say, is not on the same level as perhaps a priest would be. You know, it's from my experience, people who become imams do so by virtue of who they are, their character. It's not like you don't have to go to the seminary or something. You know, it has to do with who gets the call. I think it's very much like that. It's sort of an involuntary thing, whereas I think that other clerics in other traditions, you know, train for it. I'm not saying they don't get the call. I think it's also involved. But an imam is somebody who, by virtue of who they are as a person, what the character of their heart is, that they get inspired to fulfill that role. So if a person, you know, has some questions about faith or practice, whatever, and they don't find the answers that they are seeking with an imam at least can help to guide them on how they can perhaps find the answers within themselves. And then the community is very strong within the Muslim community. And so perhaps that imam doesn't feel like they've given any help to that person seeking. They recommend somebody else, one of the other imams that they may know. I think, you know, so it's more of an individual questing for faith, for understanding. And, you know, sometimes you just get that connection with somebody, and then they are able to help you work it out yourself. Okay, Doa, what's our next question?
Sure. The next question is from Cliff, student,
Mhm.
asks, Islam from its very beginning has had a significant political component. The
Mhm.
caliphates and the conquest of
Yes,
North Africa and
right.
Spain were all political manifestations of Islam, as
Mhm.
are the various versions of Sharia law.
Right,
Houston focused on the mystical aspects of Islam, but
right,
that is only one aspect of the Islamic experience for adherents, and for most, it is not part of the Islamic existence. Will
right.
the remainder of the course integrate these aspects of Islam and the conflicts within Islam?
Um, well, I said at the beginning that I am not a political scientist. So that's not my main concern. Yes, we definitely will touch on Sufism or the mystical Islam, as I think it's in week 3. Um, but no, that's just a small part of it. And I think for that particular film, you know, Bill Moyers is always interviewing people about what their life experience has been, and in the context of, you know, a particular topic or subject matter. So for Houston Smith, even though he's a world-renowned scholar in terms of religions, um, he had the personal experience. So I think that, you know, and I thought about that at the beginning, but I think most people would benefit from seeing this film, because even though he does really focus in on the mystic elements, there are many, many more. And so my aim is to present you with a well-rounded picture of the Islamic experience, particularly with emphasis on the culture and the cultures, I should say, and the religious aspects that we can observe. So, you know, my strong suit is not politics, but we'll see when we get to next week and we start talking about the difference between the Sunni Muslims and the Shia Muslims. We'll see that at essence is political. It started out as, you know, the young Ali was a young man compared to what Muhammad was near the end of his life. And so there was a difference in generations, a difference in point of view. And so Ali, being the young one, he had his compatriots also who were around him, and is very political. So right at the very beginning of the Islamic tradition, you have politics being an integral part and a factor in dividing the faith, the faithful, I should say. So we can't get around it, but it's not going to be my emphasis. Okay. Thank you, Dawa. Do we have one more?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so can we go back to the, yes. All right, and then the next one, please, Dawa, which is slide number 2. Yes. So I wanted to show this to you because, in today's world, there are over 2 billion Muslims in the world today. And these are the top 6 countries or regions in terms of Muslim populations. So the first, of course, is Indonesia, and they have 12.7% of the world population are Muslims. Okay, yes. These are primarily, we'll get to that in a bit, but primarily Sunnis. Yes, okay. And then Pakistan is second, and there are 11.1% of the world population are Muslims within Pakistan. Okay. India, we have 10.9%. So India is third in the ranking of Muslims that are practicing who are Indian. Next is Bangladesh. 9.2% of the world's population are Muslims in Bangladesh. And then the last 2 are the regions. We have in the Middle East region, we have Iran and Turkey as having the greatest population of Muslims of the world population. And finally, in Africa, we have Egypt and Nigeria have the largest Muslim populations in terms of the world. Okay, so you notice that everything is not on the North American continent, right? I mean, we're talking about the other regions of the world, right? Okay. Next. Now, I was hesitant because here we've heard about this schism, between Sunnis and Shias. Sunnis comprise 87 to 90% of all Muslims worldwide. And so you see the Shia are really a minority, but they're a significant minority because there are certain things about Shiism which sets it apart from the Sunnis. And it's not the majority, so the majority of all Muslims worldwide are Sunnis. And Sunni, the word Sunni comes from the Sunnah, or the teachings and practices of Muhammad, which are preserved for the most part in a body of literature which is called hadith. And the word hadith means basically narration. And so you may know that the Islamic tradition began as an oral tradition. And so it didn't actually, the Quran itself was not written down until quite a bit later after the death of Muhammad. And we'll get to that in a minute. Let me just, I think, is this slide 3? Yes, okay. So the early Islamic chronology timeline, and I want to just go over this quickly so you get an idea. So up until the year 610 of the Common Era, this was the period known as pre-Islamic Arabia, or in Arabic, it's called the Jahiliyyah, which means the age of ignorance, right? Because people were polytheistic. The Kaaba, which is now the sacred site of Islam, was the house for different idols, physical idols that were kept there. And so Arabs from all around would make a pilgrimage to the Kaaba to pay honor to their gods, quote unquote. And then Muhammad came along around the year 570. That's why I put the C there. He was born in Mecca, and he grew up there. He was part of the tribe. You've probably heard the word Quraysh. That was his tribe. And the Quraysh people were they were wealthy because that was a trading point. And so they traded with people far and wide in that whole region, from the Middle East all the way to the Far East, really, and Africa as well. However, a few months before he was actually born, his father passed away. And his mother passed away when he was about 6 years old. So he was raised by his uncle. This was a brother of his father. And let's see. He was the son of Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib and Amina bint Wahab. His father, Abdullah, the son of a Quraysh tribal leader, died a few months before Muhammad's birth. His mother, Amina, died when he was 6, leaving Muhammad as an orphan. He was raised under the care of his grandfather and paternal uncle. In later years, he would periodically seclude himself in a mountain cave that was called Hira, outside of the city. And he would stay there for several nights, just in prayer. When he was at age 40, which was around 610 of the Common Era, Muhammad reported being visited by the angel Gabriel in the cave and receiving his first revelation from God. Now, it's important to note that when Muhammad was born and when he was raised up, he was in the context of Arabia. Well, there were already many Jews in the area and many Christians. So he grew up in this atmosphere, and alongside of the polytheism of the Arabs. But he knew about monotheism because there was that long tradition that he was familiar with. He was steeped in it. And particularly, he came to be known as a pious man and trustworthy. And he was for his work, he was hired by Khadija, who at the time was, I think, several years older than he was. And she hired him because he had such a good reputation for being an honest man. And her business was commerce. She had a caravan business, and she was a wealthy woman merchant. And she had heard about Muhammad. He had a reputation for being honest and trustworthy. So she hired him. And then they got married. And so she was already older than he was when they got married, but they stayed married for 25 years until her death. Okay. Let's see. So,
Professor, we do have one question.
yes.
And this is regarding slide number 3, where there was the population size
Okay.
display.
Yes.
So Hunter wants to know, would you say the Shia are better educated because they seems to have a strong voice in view of the percentage?
Better educated? Is that what she's saying?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't dare make that generalization. No, I don't think that's really valid. Yeah, I mean, not that I'm aware of.
Sure.
Okay.
And the second question is from Mary.
Yes.
She wants to know, how do you spell Muhammad's tribe of origin?
Oh, the Quraysh. So in English, we spell it with Qurayysh. Okay?
Yep, I just put it
Okay.
in the chat. Thank you.
Okay,
That's
great.
it.
Thank you. All right. So when Muhammad went to his cave, Hira, as he usually did, and he was gone for a few days, and then he was there in the cave praying one night, and the angel Gabriel spoke to him and said, Iqra, which means to recite. And of course, he was astounded by this because he was in his quiet meditation and he didn't understand what was being asked of him. And so, this repeated a few times. And so finally, he just decided to listen. And according to the stories that we have that have been preserved, Muhammad realized that he was supposed to bring a message to his people. And the main message was that there is only one God, and you are the messenger of that to bring this message to your people, the Arab people, because we already had Judaism well established and we had Christianity as well. Um, so Muhammad rushed home to Khadija, explained to her what happened, and she actually became the first Muslim and was very supportive of him. And so that's where it all began. Um, Now let's see, where are we in 610? Oh, come back just a minute. Doa, please go back. Yes. So I just wanted to mention, like in 622, Muhammad and his followers, his immediate followers, had to leave Mecca because there was great animosity between the Quraysh, who were ruling the city, and Muhammad's message. And so they were threatening to him. They didn't want him to be preaching this stuff because it interfered with their commerce, because people came from all around to visit Mecca, not only to make a pilgrimage, but also to do business and to trade and sell and buy, etc. And so the Quraysh felt threatened by Muhammad now preaching the fact that there's only one God. And that meant that, at some point, the Kaaba was cleared out of all of those idols and objects of worship that were there, that were being housed there. And but it wasn't enough. The Quraysh were really life-threatening to Muhammad in that early period. So in 622, he decided, along with his advisors and people that said, go to the city of Medina because there are people there that will support you. And it happened to be mostly the Jewish people that lived in Medina, but they were his first allies. And there's something about, as the revelations continued to happen for Muhammad, he was doing all of this conveying orally. And his companions, those people right around him, were memorizing it because he was having sort of a, I guess, a spiritual experience when he would get the information and convey it to his followers. They were memorizing it because this is an oral tradition, and they hadn't really, there was writing, but it was mainly concerned with the commerce, you know. Um, okay. And so he went to Medina and was fortified and supported by the people there. And then in 630, decided to come back to Mecca and try to reestablish a foothold there because he knew that he was being called to convey this message of the one God. Okay. And then he passed away in 632. At that time, there was no provision for who was going to be his successor. They had not gotten to that point yet. So what they did was one of his closest companions was Abu Bakr. He was an older man. He was older than Muhammad at the time and well respected. And another happens to be the third caliph after there was Abu Bakr was the first caliph, and then there was Omar, and then there was Uthman. So Uthman was around at that very beginning when Muhammad passed away. And so he suggested that they set up a procedure for the success, for naming the successor. And so they established like a council, an advisory council to make that determination. And so, and that same Uthman was encouraging, along with Omar, was encouraging that it should be Abu Bakr because he was the oldest one at the time and he was very trustworthy and he was close with Muhammad. So that's what happened. And so I think Dawa, we can, and then the last date there, 632 to 661, this was the period of the four rightly guided caliphs. And we'll talk more about that. But we have when Muhammad passed, then Abu Bakr became the first caliph, and then Omar became the second caliph, and then Uthman became the third caliph, and the fourth caliph was Ali. And Ali is where we get the schism because Ali, being a younger man, he had his compatriots, which were all younger men, and they decided that because Ali was also cousin to Muhammad, and Ali's parents died early on when he was a boy. And so because Muhammad and he were in the same household, basically, Muhammad basically raised Ali. And they were relatives, you know, they were cousins. So when Ali came along, he decided that he should be the successor to Muhammad because they were related by blood. And so there are differing opinions. That's how the whole split between Sunnism and Shiism happened, because Shia means party, like a political party or a coalition. And so they believe that it should be Ali who is the rightful successor. And the Sunnis, of course, want to follow the ways and the teachings of Muhammad himself. Yes.
On the slide 630, Muhammad's conquest of Mecca. Is that like a kind of a war?
It was a battle. It wasn't a full-fledged war because by then, you know, Muhammad had been preaching a few years. And so I think because they were successful when they went to Medina and they brought reinforcements back to Mecca, and Muhammad wanted to transform the Kaaba into the holy place for where believers could come and make their pilgrimage to the one God. Okay, yes. All right. Are we out of time? Oh, we are. Okay, so I think next time we will continue. There's a couple more slides that I want to show all of you. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Okay.